Hey, deserving listeners, let's continue following the Ruby Franke Jodi Hildebrandt news story. Let's watch.
Okay, I fear that he may have become corrupted, particularly the app TikTok that I hear from other women in my church is propagating homosexual lifestyle. Yes.
All right, so to catch you up, I think Jodi is live streaming or something, and she is answering someone's concern, someone's question about their child having been influenced by TikTok and society to be gay, I think, is the context. And before going forward, I just want to remind everyone that I'm watching the YouTube channel called the Mormon Stories Podcast.
That I hear from other women in my church is propagating homosexual lifestyle. Yes, that's true. It is. I hold myself partly to blame for this, as I allowed him free access to his smartphone since age 15. Oh, Mom. So you said I feel partly to blame. This isn't about blame. Blame's not going to help you. You are culpable. You are responsible.
This isn't about blame, but you're to blame. That's what charismatic leaders will do. They will brainwash through language shenanigans and gymnastics. Look, this isn't about blame, but you are culpable. Let's look up the definition of culpable. Culpable meaning deserving blame. Very simple. It is an adjective. The definition is deserving blame. So, you know, you're not to blame. It's not about blame, but you are deserving of blame. Let's rewatch that.
Oh, Mom. So you said I feel partly to blame. This isn't about blame. Blame's not going to help you. You are culpable. You are responsible. You put into...
And it just makes you wonder what's the strategy there or the bias. I wouldn't be surprised if we watched a lot of Jodi's content that, or her way of helping, quote unquote, is that she has to keep people small and made to feel stupid and belittling people. So the statement from the person is, hey, I feel like I'm to blame. For her to agree with that just openly, yes, you are to blame, it gives the person that's calling in or the client power because Jodi is saying you're right, essentially. But there could be this bias or this tendency for her to always oppose the person, regardless of what they say, and then just use different language to get at what essentially is what they were saying. I don't know, but or another thing is taking the edge off of blame. You know, saying you're not to blame, but you are culpable, as if culpable is a lesser insulting word or something. I don't know.
Boy's hands something very dangerous, much more dangerous than a weapon, much more dangerous than a gun. You know, people say, well, guns kill. Well, cell phones will kill you spiritually.
Yeah. Cell phones and everything on it, they are very, very powerful. And you, Jodi, have been spreading your horrific notions around the world through a cell phone. Yeah, so true. Just think of this notion that somehow TikTok made my son gay. That's what it says on the thing, right? I didn't even see that, or maybe I subconsciously did. So yeah. I mean, maybe TikTok did help an individual who is gay to come out as gay or feel like it's okay to be gay or to connect them with other gay people so that they could have a community. Yeah, but TikTok didn't make your son gay. Just imagine the amount of misinformation that you'd have to continually hold on to think this way. It's like flat earthers. It's so ridiculous. If this is true, that TikTok makes people gay, or liberals make people gay, or gay people make people gay, then you would have everyone would be gay because everyone's on TikTok, right? But no, you just see there's a percentage of people. And so it seems like there's a percentage of people that are gay and a percentage of people that are hetero, and there are a percentage of people in the middle somewhere, percentage of people who are bi, percentage of people who are trans, percentage of people who are cis, percentage, there's It's percentages, and that's the way it seems. And when you provide freedom and laws that protect people, then people will emerge into adulthood having discovered who they are and perhaps sharing that identity with the others in the world. And that's where we're headed. We're far from that complete liberty and freedom, but we're a lot better than we were before. So this whole notion that you could just have that TikTok could turn you gay. I mean, if anything, TikTok probably has a lot of homophobia on it. To be honest, I don't know that, but I wouldn't be surprised if the overall, if you just counted all the videos on TikTok, that it would tend to lean on the homophobic side, because even though there's a lot of young people on TikTok and certainly a lot of activists that are fighting the good fight, our culture is still homophobic, and TikTok reflects our culture. And so I'm guessing that that's going to happen. So, yeah, anyway.
Is your husband upset? Are you upset? Yes, you are. It's not just about that he's made this declaration. It's also that you've been being lied to. Your hard-earned, the evidence of how you've been taking care of him, like the money you've spent, the roof over his head, the work that both of you've done to.
So some context, I believe that someone is asking Jodi a question regarding that her and her husband are upset that their child is gay or trans or something.
Your hard-earned, the evidence of how you've been taking care of him, like the money you've spent, the roof over his head, the work that both of you've done to give him the things that will make his life comfortable. He has exploited all of those things. And he has been going places that are very dangerous and destructive to his little soul. Now, if he's an adult, or when he becomes adult and he chooses to behave in whatever lifestyle he chooses to behave in.
I love that word, lifestyle. You never call it a heterosexual, cisgender lifestyle, right?
Your job is to guide them in principles of truth. And
yeah, your truth. But the truth, in reality, is that gay people exist and they're fine. And we shouldn't be oppressing them or thinking that it's a temporary lifestyle. So your truth is this backward, unscientific, ridiculous, harmful bigotry. That's your truth. But the truth is not your truth.
You can't say he's being defiant. This is just who he is. And the truth is that that's not who he is. There's not a soul on the planet that was born towards something that violates principles of truth. So none of us are born to kill. None of us are born to be attracted to animals. We're not attracted to want to be sexual with the earth.
Sexual with, what do you, earth? Who, what? So, yeah. It's so weird. So these religious cults, they're so oppressive to sexuality, and yet their mind is so sexually creative. It just points to, like, you think about sex a lot. Probably because you're suppressing so much. And of course, there are allegations or suspicions that she is gay, or that she is gay herself. And this whole lifestyle is one big defense against that of some sort. I don't know that, of course. But yeah, it's an old trope of conservatives and right-wingers and fundamentalists of various different sorts to equate being gay with being a pedophile, with having sex with animals, with being promiscuous. But it's just heartbreaking to think that you have a young person who comes out as gay to their parents, and the parents ask Jodi for advice, and Jodi, and presumably those parents respect and look up to Jodi, and Jodi just feeds them all this nonsense, and then the parents are going to go back and reject and harm this young person. It's just, I mean, just think about that young person and what they're going through, regardless of Jodi, and then you add Jodi. And by the way, this is absolutely outside the standard of practice and would absolutely get your license at least looked into. I mean, this is just one of her hundreds of videos that have this sort of material. And it is one of those hardline things, actually, in our society And I've done whole episodes on this topic, and it's changing every year. But generally speaking, in the last number of years, the various professions in the United States have come forward and publicly stated that it is unethical and outside the standard of practice and unscientific to hold the idea that LGBTQIA people can be reformed. You know, you can pray away the gay, or you can therapize away the gay or the trans or whatever.
And we're not drawn, if you will, to the same gender. Now, can we override that? Yeah, we can.
No, you can't. It's been stabbed. 30 years ago, if someone said this, I'd be like, well, you're dumb, but I don't know. I guess I would say, well, that is a prevalent idea. In 2023, or whenever this was made, I'm guessing it was recently, that in modern times that you would have a clinician say this sort of nonsense is just incredible. I mean, just think about the amount of brainwashing that you would have to be involved in, and the amount of trickery and gymnastics you'd have to do in your mind. It's just astonishing. And just so sad and pathetic. I wish I had a time machine I could skip forward, like however many years it's required, 50 years, 500 years, and just could put all this behind us. Can we just put this behind us?
And it's called lust. I can lust after anything. And lust is inside marriages between men and women. Lust is inside marriages between men and men and women and women. I mean, I call it marriage because now it's legal on the planet to be married. People can be lustful with animals. They can be lustful with inanimate objects. You can lust after anything. It's a form of selfishness and aggression and hatred. Hatred primarily towards myself.
What? Isn't it okay for heterosexual, Mormon-sanctioned marriages? Well, okay. Well, yeah, right. So when they go really far into the echo chamber or cult, then they will say it's even wrong to have lust for your partner, because as a cult, we need to control every aspect of your life, and we need to keep you in a constant state of deprivation and shame so that we can control you. So you should only be having sex for procreation, and it should be about God and all that kind of stuff. And you should never be lusting.
6 children.
Eve has been amazingly well behaved for being in town.
But you yelled at me.
Shh. The fact that I yell at my kids is a secret. We don't want our viewers to know.
Okay, so I'm watching clips from the Law and Crime Trial Network on YouTube, and we just saw a little snippet. The more snippets I see, it just makes me wonder how many snippets are there. I think it's a good chance, and I think people are telling me that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of clips that are all pointing in the direction of abuse, some of them exhibiting abuse in the actual video.
Once boasting more than 2 million followers, the YouTube page is now defunct. Kester says the family hasn't created content for the channel in more than a year.
I don't think anything's been posted on that for pretty close to a year and a half.
Okay, so they are interviewing the father's attorney, Kevin Franke's attorney. And he's saying that Kevin, the father, hadn't seen the children in over a year. And it's hard to know the circumstances around that. How hard was the dad fighting to see the kids? I don't know. But the claim by Kevin Franke is that he didn't know about any of the abuse that was happening. And I find that hard to believe, given that it was happening right in front of him, and it was on, while he was still in the home, and he's on camera, and those videos are on the internet. So even if he wasn't in the room when those things are happening as they're being filmed, they're on the internet. So I'm guessing what he means is he didn't know about the severe abuse that was happening. It appears that abuse was happening on a lower scale. We're also learning that, and I'm guessing some of you already know this, but in terms of the timeline, it kind of looks like that Ruby Franke had this YouTube channel, 8 Passengers, and was possibly abusing the children and preaching this very harsh, if not abusive, parenting style. But it wasn't at the level of Jodi Hildebrandt. And then at some point, Ruby Franke meets up with Jodi Hildebrandt maybe because the marriage wasn't going through a good time, or who knows. And then at some point becomes indoctrinated into Jodi Hildebrandt's way of thinking. Jesse Hildebrandt, Jodi Hildebrandt's brother's child, said as much that, look, this is not a story about Ruby Franke. This is a story about Jodi Hildebrandt. And Ruby Franke just got caught up in the Jodi Hildebrandt cult. And then Jodi Hildebrandt convinces Ruby Franke to utilize her clout on the internet to, bolster Jodi Hildebrandt's brand or career, to the point where, and of course this is all just me making up a story, I don't know, I don't see any data that exactly points at this, but the timeline seems to add up that at some point Jodi got Ruby and all the children underneath her cult or her high control group, and maybe Jodi was suspicious of Kevin and somehow got Ruby to ostracize Kevin or something, and then influenced Ruby to shut down her YouTube channel, because that's her, the 8 Passengers YouTube channel also stopped posting around this time. So a lot of changes happened about a year ago. Apparently, she moved all the kids to southern Utah to live in this very remote house of Jodi Hildebrandt.
While they did their investigation, they weren't letting anyone have contact with the kids.
But Kester maintains Kevin Franke had no idea his children were in trouble.
Some critics are saying, how could you not know? How could you spend this much time without speaking to your kids? What does he have to say about that?
He was following the advice of who he thought was a professional mental health expert, telling him to stay away. The only way to save his family was to stay apart from his family at that point, while he thought they were working toward reconciliation. He had no idea that there was this kind of abuse going on. She was telling him that everything was blissful and everything was wonderful.
Yeah, I think that's totally possible, what Kevin is saying there, that he didn't know what was actually happening in Jodi Hildebrandt's home. And if he did know, he would have done something different. I think that is actually possible. And that might actually be why Jodi managed to get rid of Kevin, because Jodi knew that Kevin wasn't brainwashable. Another element here, I don't know if I showed the clip, was the attorney was saying that in the beginning, when the family was still together and the parents were still together, that Jodi and Ruby would go off, just the two of them, for days at a time and come back, and while the father was left at home with the kids. And for some people, that I guess might raise a suspicion that this is another example of how Jodi Hildebrandt is engaging with someone's wife in a sexual relationship or a romantic relationship or a flirting relationship or something. I don't know if there's any hard data on this, but there are people that are wondering about that. He's saying that, and and people are attacking the father, like how could you possibly do this? And so, according to the attorney, what Kevin is saying is, look, I was told to stay away because I was following the advice of this licensed mental health person, and that doesn't. It's like, huh? But when you hear Jodi talking, and if you're already brainwashed into a cult way of thinking anyway, it's not a stretch to imagine that Kevin would have been easily convinced. But that doesn't address the issue that I'm wondering about, which is, well, Kevin, what do you think about what was happening while you were living in the house? Because there appeared to have been, to a lesser extent, but still actual abuse or mistreatment or problematic parenting that was happening before you separated from your family. So I think that is another question that I think if I were an advocate for the children, that would be a question, because it looks like if things continue going down this road, that all the children will be returned to the father.
That, in conjunction with the fact she didn't tell him that she had taken the kids to southern Utah to be in Jodi's home. He would have resisted that, but she didn't tell him. He was being advised by his mental health care professional to stay away from the family and not contact the kids.
Kester does say before his wife's arrest, Kevin Franke received counseling from Hildebrandt.
During the separation, Kevin was attending men's groups that were facilitated by Jodi, and during those groups, he was being downgraded and diminished and told how bad he was and that he needed to repent, and that the best way to repent was to not infect his family with his problems. And
wow, I mean, wow. I can't wait for there to be a full scale documentary series about this or a recreation series it's just mind blowing to think about that Jodi had a men's group and he was recommended to be in it, sounds like. And so he obeys and he's in it. And you can imagine, given how successful Jodi was as a cult leader, that she would perhaps begin the process of the group therapy with some things that Kevin could get behind to invite him in. And then once she's got her hooks into him, then she starts to tear him down and tear him down and tear him down, and using this truth versus distortion thing. And maybe the other group members are also terrified of her or in awe of Jodi, and then influences him to stay away from the family. Yeah. From the outside, you're just like, where was the dad? I don't understand. But when you hear that, you think, oof. And you could totally imagine that, right? And I wonder if Kevin is more susceptible to that kind of influence. I mean, anyone is susceptible. If you watch this, you're like, oh, I wouldn't do that. In all likelihood, you would. Anyone is susceptible to this kind of brainwashing and mind control within a cult. It happens to the best of us. Anyway, so that's what Kevin is claiming. I don't know. It's possible this is all just some a group of lies that Kevin is saying because he's trying to avoid getting in trouble. But that is pretty interesting. And the elaborateness of Jodi's scheme, was it that she was just ad-libbing it as she was going, or did she plan it all in advance? Where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do that. I'm going to get this YouTuber who has millions of followers, and I'm going to manipulate her and indoctrinate her in this cult, and we're going to I'm going to make all this money, I'm going to spread the word, I'm going to run for president, I'm going to make parenting great again. Okay, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.